Those of you who have been to the bathroom here today or last night may have noticed that the mirrors are covered. Imagine approaching a mirror, whether you actually already experienced this here or have not yet, but instead of seeing your reflection, you find yourself left unanswered. No self peering back at you. The modern mirror was invented only in 1835. Less than 2 centuries ago, only a handful of generations ago, our ancestors did not have regular access to seeing themselves. Even once they did, it was pocket-sized, not full length. The mirror has had a profound impact on our psyche and how we see ourselves, of course, literally, and also figuratively. For several years, I lived in a dome in the woods without a mirror. I went months without ever seeing my own reflection. It felt so natural, so primal. Nature does not offer us such pristine reflections of ourselves all the time. It made me feel like we may not be intended to see ourselves so clearly, so frequently. It seemed there must be a reason why our eyes are on our heads rather than on our hands or an external part that would be able to look back at ourselves. Constantly looking at our own reflection just causes us to think about ourselves so much more often. In our modern lives, sometimes we may not even want to look at ourselves, but we find ourselves forced to. When washing our hands at a restaurant or even at a friend's home, we're just trying to clean ourselves, not self-reflect. What would life be like if we removed all the mirrors from our world? At the same time, we have all stumbled upon a natural body of water and been in awe of the immaculate reflection nature offers us. Our ancestors figured out how to polish obsidian in order to see their own reflections in it around 6,000 BCE. It's a natural instinct to want to be able to see ourselves more clearly. It's a natural instinct to want to understand ourselves more intimately. After a couple years living without a mirror, I started to feel farther from myself. I would see a recent photograph of me and it would catch me by surprise a little bit. I was changing before my own eyes, yet not before my own eyes, behind my own eyes. I wondered what it would be like to start an intentional mirror practice. Still not looking at a mirror every day, but every once in a while, very intentionally sitting with a mirror, being with myself, finding answers, reflecting. The etymology of the word reflect, re meaning back again, and flect meaning bend, teaches us that when we look in a mirror, the light waves bend back to display our reflection. When we introspectively reflect, like during these days of awe, our thoughts bend inward, back to the past, to the people we may have conflict with, to ourselves. The high holidays serve as our spiritual mirror. Yom Kippur traditionally serves as a rehearsal for our death. Our tradition teaches us to pray the day that we will die, and since we do not know what day we will die, we ought to pray every single day. Similarly, our tradition teaches us to rehearse for our death, the year we will die. And since we do not know what year we will die, we rehearse it every year. So on Yom Kippur, we fast and refrain from sexual encounters to let go of our physical bodies, since we do not eat nor enjoy physical pleasure when we're dead. On Yom Kippur, we wear all white, just like the traditional burial shroud we will be buried in. On Yom Kippur, we recite the Shema and Vidui, the last words we recite on our deathbed. On Yom Kippur, we chant the parsha of Torah called Acharei Mot, after death. Traditionally, after a loved one's death, in a house of mourning, we cover the mirrors. Yes, here's where it comes full circle. We cover the mirrors when mourning to remind us that this time revolves around spiritual reflection, not physical reflection. That it's about how we show up for one another emotionally, not in appearance. We cover the mirrors because the work of this time cannot be seen in a mirror. Mirrors are limited. They only capture the two-dimensional world. We live in so many more dimensions than that. Yom Kippur is our yearly excuse to reflect on how we're showing up in this world, disregarding those two dimensions. Today, rather than makeup artists, we get to be soul artists. Rather than fashion designers of what color clothing you're wearing, we get to be conflict resolution designers. So instead of tending to the split ends on your hair, what relationships of yours can you tend to any split ends? The Rambam, a highly regarded 12th century rabbi, taught in Shmona Perakim, כשיהיה האדם שוקל פעולותיו תמיד ומחיון אל אמצעותם יהיה במדרגה העליונה ממדרגות בני אדם. ובזה יתקרב אל השם וישגיג אל טובו. וזהו הדרך השלם שבדרכי העבודה. When a person frequently looks oneself squarely in the mirror and examines one's behavior, one will reach the highest degree of perfection possible to a human being, thereby approaching God and sharing in the divine happiness. This is the path of wholeness and peace, that of the path of reflection. The Rambam taught us that centuries and centuries and centuries ago. So let's take a moment to look squarely in the mirror. Let's turn inside, lowering our eyes and raising our hearts. Imagine yourself with one of the very first modern mirrors from the 19th century. And as you shine it upon yourself, you see not your external reflection, but internal reflections. Who in your life appears in the mirror with you? Who in your life appears in the mirror that you'd like to interact with differently in this new year? See in the mirror how it might look to show up differently with them. Now, move the mirror around and see what parts of your life you might want to give more time and energy to in 5784. What deserves more of your time and energy? Gently shape the mirror to now reflect what parts of your life you might want to give less time and energy to this year. What do you want to cut back on? Let the mirror now show you, before you die, something you want to do for yourself. Our tradition gives us this yearly rehearsal for our death so that every time we complete another circle around the spiral of life, we remember to cover the mirrors and reflect inward to find our answers. The Torah we're about to beautifully hear chanted teaches us that B'chodesh hashvi'i ba'asor lachodesh ta'anu et nafshtechem. In the 7th month, which is Tishrei, the month we're in now, on the 10th day of the month, today, answer your souls. Answer your souls. What does that mean today, to answer your soul? Funny thing about that word answer is that's what teshuvah means too. Teshuvah can be translated as repentance, return, or also answer. We spend all year asking questions. We spend these 10 days finally seeing in the mirror our soul's answers.